everybody, to another episode of The Launch Button, where we help you launch your dreams, your passions, whatever it happens to be for you. And today we are going to talk about going over some of your fears because there are fears holding us back from success. And I want to make sure that we address them. And we got limited beliefs, there's objections, there's procrastination, there's lots of overthinking that prevents people from reaching their goals and dreams. And I had it too, right? When I was looking to make certain shifts in life and to be able to do that, going from my corporate job to investing, from investing to public speaking to all sorts of different things, every time there were some fears that started to get in the way. And then when the real estate market crashed and all these things happen, you get the ups and downs of the emotional roller coaster of being an entrepreneur, which is what we love. So we're going to talk about a few things here on some of those objections, some of those things that may have held you back from truly reaching the goals and dreams that you wanted. And I'll share a few stories with you about my students and myself on how some of these things went. So as we're talking about this, I get people from all different walks of life, all different places. So Danielle here happens to be, she's got a full-time job. And then on top of that, right, full-time job, she's a grandmother. And who would have thought, right? Look how young she looks. And then you also have, she's a real estate agent and she's an investor. And, she was building things and going through things. And she realized that, even though she is a hard worker, even though she's putting her best foot forward, things just weren't working out for her. So she needed to surround herself with successful people. So she came on down to one of our boot camps, one of our trainings out in the field. And she knew, right, I'd give her a swift kick in the pants, right? She knows I'm brutally honest. And as she says, I'm brutally honest and honest to a fault, but it's all for your good. And so we came to that boot camp and we started working together, and she started to really see how she needed to shift her mindset, right? She was allowing little things to get in her way. She wasn't time blocking right. She wasn't doing a few different things there. So when she came down to the boot camp, she made about, 250,000 in transactions in her previous year as a real estate agent. After leaving the boot camp, she took her business to over $1.25 million, right? She quadrupled it in only 10 months and continued to grow it from there. Danielle has some things that holds her back, right? Just like everybody else. And sometimes she gets in her own way. So we really focused on her getting out of her own way. And her partner gave me one of the best compliments ever. Several months later, we were at an event in Philadelphia at a Woman in Power event. And, we were talking about, some of the things and the changes in her. And during dinner, Darryl came up to me and he said, thank you, Hugh. I said, what for? He said, she's a different woman since coming back from the boot camp and hanging out with you, right? Every time she hangs out with you, she makes money. And sometimes that's just what we need to do. And that's what I learned early on in my career when I, went from real estate investing to wanting to be a public speaker and be one of the top speakers in the company. I just started hanging out with the top producers. That's what I did, right? I knew I needed to make a good impression on Mike and Ted at that time. And I listened in on their conversations. They didn't like it. They're like, who's this guy from New York? Right? Ted's from Alabama, Mike's from Florida, and they were looking at me like, who's this guy? Why is he listening in our conversations? Because I was just trying to pick up all the subtleties, all the little tricks and things, because we can all do the same thing. You and I can say the same words, but we can have a different impact on the way we talk, the words we use, the emotion behind it. All of those things go into play with this. And so I ended up making them some money at my very first event. And then that broke the ice, right? They got paid all of the commissions. And so then they started asking for me to come out and they started showing me the little tips and tricks. So we talk about making it a frictionless process. And you'll hear me talk about that in the future. One of the things when you're working with multimillionaires or billionaires or whoever you want to be that you want to learn from, make it frictionless. The more friction you put in the way, the less time, energy, and effort they want to put into you at first. So you'll hear more about that in the future. And that's what Danielle did. By her showing up at the event, right? She came on down, she put herself in that position. We started working together, and then we just continue to work together, continue to engage to this day, right? Going over real estate deals with her, helping her on an agent business, helping her on her investment business, just because she's putting things into action. So I just want you guys to think about that, right? To get over your fears, sometimes I say you got to borrow somebody else's brain. And in this case, that's what she did. She surrounded herself. She started to see the way we see things differently. Another great example of this is Dara and Mahu, who happens to be from Atlanta and originally not from there, of course, but when you hear their accents, you'll fully understand that they're originally from India and came over here and they're raising a beautiful family. And Mahu is an IT guy, old IT guy like me, right? When he came to the boot camp, he was unsure, didn't really want to talk to people. And we had another guy there, Greg, from South Florida. Um, Always up to gab and talk with people, right? He speaks both Spanish and English, so he's bilingual. So he's always out there making friends. And when he came down to the event, he's like, Hugh, I could talk to anybody, right? I could talk to anybody, said Greg. And the first time we got him on the phone, he froze, right? He froze and he was like, oh, what do I say? It was like, say hello, right? They're like, oh, are you a real estate agent? And he was like, Hugh, what do I say? I go, you answer the question. Right. And sometimes our brains just start freaking out. That's where the fear comes in. Even though he could talk to everybody, even though he could do those things, right? All of a sudden, on the spot, started to overthink. The fear started to kick in. The what I don't know what to say started to kick in. Right. And at the same time, Mahu, quiet guy, IT guy, right? We gave him the tools and all he did was follow the process. And he was the first one to get a house that we got to go see, right? We call it a property tour. He was the first one to go ahead and book that appointment. Why? Because he quieted his brain and just went through the script, just went through the things that we laid out step by step by step. So let me ask you this. How many times have you overthought the process? And you know it's a really simple answer, but you allowed that fear, you allowed those things to bubble up inside of you and not allow you to reach your goal. I've done it. Other people have done it, right? And Dara there was super proud of her husband that day, and she did a great job as well at the boot camp, being able to, get him to come down and to really start to take the action. And they're a wonderful team working together. But I want you to put yourself in that position. Have you been in that position, right? We would allow the anxiety, the fear, all of the things to overwhelm you, and you didn't take the action. That's what happens to a lot of people. We don't want that to happen to you. So be like Mahul, just follow the steps, right? That's all he did. He just said, I got to do step one. I got to do step two. I got to do step three. And that's what we talk about with you, right? Clarity prevents procrastination. And so as you're going through this, I just want you to see that. And it doesn't matter what your background is. Because some people think it's easier if you're a real estate professional or you're a certain profession, right? We all have these misconceptions in our brain. And I had it too, right? When I started speaking and training, I had all these misconceptions. What were all these people going to think? And quickly, I became the number 4 speaker in the company. Why? Because I just followed the steps of the successful people. They told me to go do this. I went and did that. They told me don't do that. I didn't do it. I didn't question it. I just said yes, right? Let's just go. And that's what I want for you guys and gals out there. I just want you to take the necessary steps, get clear on what it is, and be able to do that. And another thing that, Dara and Mahul and Dara was thinking about this was like, hey, I'm not so good with numbers, but Mahul is. So it's going to be about that. And part of building any business, I don't care if it's real estate investing, I don't care if it's a sales and marketing business, I don't care what your product is, the widgets, the automobiles, but a lot of it is about building relationships. And that's really what they learned at the boot camp, not only about how to go ahead and talk to people, but how to quickly build relationships. And that's a key. Building fast, quick, deep relationships will allow you to get the information that you need. And that's what they realized, that once they built those relationships, any information they wanted, anything they needed, they were able to get quickly. So I'm just sharing some of the stories of these students that are just going out there, following the process that we're going to walk you through here with the launch button. Some of the things we've already done, some of the things we're going to do in the future. The last one here is one of my favorites. This is Karina. Karina came down to, the training because she really said, Hugh, I've been a property manager for over 8 years. I can talk to anybody. Once again, I can talk to anybody, but I get in my own way and I tend to procrastinate when it comes to me. Some people are really good right at their job. You tell them what to do, they don't do it. But when they got to do it for themselves, all the thoughts, all the rejection, all the different things start popping up in their brain. So we didn't want that to happen to her. And she was like 8 months pregnant when she came to the training. One of the things that we do is we talk about not only you're going to learn how to talk to people, how to do those things, but also we want to make sure that you are running at your highest level. So we start every day out with a workout. And even though she was 8 months pregnant, she was out there doing her thing, right? And the funny thing is that other people were like, oh, don't do too much. Oh, don't do this. Oh, don't do that. Are you okay? And what we didn't realize, I mean, I realized, but what the team didn't realize and the people there at the event, they were actually holding her back because they were giving her all the excuses to not achieve something. And I know so many people out there that want to help people. You want to validate, you want to build the relationships with people. But sometimes we got to be careful on the words we use because oftentimes we're holding the other person back and we don't even realize it. We're giving them an excuse not to take the action. And on day 2 of the event, I went, Karina, do you really, when people say, oh, what about this and what about that? She said, no, I want to tell them to shut up, right? The pregnant woman, want to tell them to shut up. Don't worry about me running. I know what to do. I can push myself. I want to be pushed. The reason I'm here is I want to be pushed. So the question is, you're listening to this podcast. Is the reason you're here, you want to be pushed? You want to take the actions that you know you should take, but somehow these 6 inches in your brain are holding you back? And that's one of the big things that we got to think about, right? As we do this. Are you holding yourself back? We got to break through that procrastination. So all you really got to do is take the next steps, right? And the next steps, whatever that happens to be for you, is this, because we all have different fears. We all need support. We all have procrastination. So how do we get past that? Is we surround ourselves with people, we plug into communities, right, that work with different people, and we surround ourselves. So I'll give you some opportunities to come work with us in our closed group so that you can be a part of that, right? And that's one of the things there. In our closed group, you can be a part of that. We'll show you how we go about these things behind the scenes. We work, 2 to 3 times a week together. You're going to get plugged in on some of the different things that we're doing and be able to, achieve more as you go about it. But, we love having you guys here. Subscribe on the podcast. If this is good information, make sure you comment below. But as you are working with us, right, you're going to get a chance to see some of our exclusive content that we have behind the scenes. We're going to be able to give you some access to some of our live events where we come together in person. But just remember, it's always about taking that next step. If you don't quit, you can't lose, even if it doesn't feel like you're taking a lot of steps. So you'll hear us talk about KPIs, key performance indicators. You're going to hear us talk about CDA, consistent daily action that leads to success. What are those things that you're doing to set yourself up for success? And I'll talk more about those on the next episode. So we appreciate your time here today. If you like this, hit the hearts, make the comments, hit the follow wherever you happen to be listening to this podcast. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The Launch Button. Thank you for joining us on the Launch Button podcast, your gateway to unlocking your true potential and pursuing your passions. Don't let the journey end here. For more empowering insights, valuable resources, exclusive content, and free giveaways, visit www.thelaunchbuttonpodcast.com.